Hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review. I am your host and creator of the show, Luis Jimenez. It's great to have all of you back here. Real quick, before we get started, just want to give a huge shout out to John Brusso. John, I can't bring up your comments here, but just know I see your $50 super chat. I see your question. We're definitely going to ask that to Steven. I'm not sure why it's not coming up in our StreamYard, but just wanted to give you a shout out before we forget. So thank you for that. Before we get started with today's show, of course, I want to remind all of you guys that this show is going to be available on Spotify, iTunes, right after the show. So if you don't know, all of our shows are available there. So go check them out. They're free. We're also want to say thank you to KGRADB for streaming this show live and also having us on the radio every Thursday from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I want to say thank you to Das Tapes for all the music they provided. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. And thank you to the Patreon members, the YouTube members, and the Super Chatters and moderators. Thank you guys out there so very much. We have two new members. I'll get your names in a moment. I added it to our little thank you list at the beginning of the show. So thank you guys for joining. And I also want to let you guys know that if you can't support the show financially, don't sweat it. Like I said earlier, everything is free. So there's no paywalls here. So enjoy. Want to say thank you to StreamYard. We're an affiliate now with StreamYard. So if you're thinking about starting your own show, kind of like ours, or you want to talk about yarn or whatever you're an expert on or passionate about, check out the StreamYard affiliate link. It'll give you a little discount when you sign up. And also, we've got links for not only KGRADB, but for Rather, for Jane, and for our guest, Mr. Steven Greenstreet. So with all of that out of the way, let's bring in our co-host, shall we? Miss UFO Jane Kyle, and Rather Be Squidding. Guys, how we doing?
Pretty good. Coming around today at the end of the week. That's about when I come around.
Hey, almost to the end. Look at this comment from Grant Levac. Luis is clean shaven after his gut-wrenching loss at the World Mustache and Beard Championship competition. Rest in peace, the beard. Jesus, we might have the winner of that.
We might have the winner of the mustache conversation or competition in the wings here.
Yeah, indeed, we might. Well, let's bring him on because we got so much to talk about. We got so much to go over. Without further ado,
do it.
Mr. Steven Greenstreet. Steven, how you doing, man? Filmmaker.
I'm exhausted.
Are you exhausted? Yeah, I mean, I saw the trailer. I'm not gonna lie, I saw a sneak peek of the sneak peek that we're gonna show to everybody a little later. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, I can understand why you're exhausted, man. I know that editing process. So is that where you wanted to start?
No, I was literally in my garage yesterday shooting more stand-ups for the episode. Really? There were a couple changes to the script this week, and I had to shoot in my garage, pull the car out, drop a black curtain. How's my audio? Am I frozen?
Yeah, you're coming in a little spotty. What I would say is maybe back out and come back in, and usually that fixes it. So let's try that. And while you're doing that, we'll fill in with something. I don't know. We're professionals.
Maybe cotton candy, maybe that's getting in the way of the Wi-Fi that's hovering above him.
Yeah, I wish I knew where he was. That looked like an interesting set.
Yeah. Well, here's a little bit of news that I could share while we're kind of waiting for him to come back. After our Skinwalker episode yesterday, we had one of our fans from the show find the tail number in the plane that was flying over Skinwalker and the time. So that will be used in a FOIA. And so we've got a date. We've got a time for when the governor was there. And there's also a couple of other interesting things that we'll fill you guys on later with. But let's bring Steven back. He's back. Steven, how we doing?
Am I better? How am I? Can you hear me? Am I moving?
You're moving. Your audio is a little funky. It almost feels like, but it's better. It is better. So we'll work with it. Let's see what happens.
It's in sync. Your body is in sync with your voice.
Is that better at all?
Yes, that is better.
Oh, we're cooking.
Okay,
Awesome.
we're cooking. Well, dude,
Yeah.
okay, so I know you're excited about the new season of Basement Office. After getting a sneak peek of the sneak peek trailer, I am also very excited about the new season of Basement Office. I guess let's start there, man. Like, what have you been working on? What are you excited about? What should people expect out of this new season?
Well, okay, so this new episode is a beast. Like unlike any other episode I've ever done. Yeah, it's precedented. the amount I've put into this. It's basically like my journey over the last year. In fact, like May of last year is when I really started going off the beat trail and really started going away from the faith. It was May of last year, and I know the exact night when it happened and everything. So basically, like new episode, it races. It's my journey of going back, and instead of like waiting around for the next domino to drop, I kind of did an about face, and I went all the way back and meticulously, and I mean meticulously, retraced every up since December 16th, 2017. And what I mean by that is week by week, month by month, I literally printed out every record statement, everything that, every photo, who, when, all this stuff. And I just kind of created this like timeline of the last 4.5 years. And you don't get very far when you do that, and you start to go a minute. Just last week, person was saying this, or last month the story said this. Like, what's going on here? And so anyway, so that just started a snowball effect and ended with me creating this episode.
Okay. I hate to do this to you, but you are getting a little bit of a Max Headroom thing going on where the last thing you say repeats itself. So it's a little weird. And folks are kind of getting a little tripped out by it. Is there any way maybe we could reset to another room or a better spot where possibly you get a better internet connection?
Or do you have anything running on you doing any Adobe Premiere processing or anything like that?
If you're doing heavy processing,
No, it's bizarre. I did a speed test, and I have like gigablast. I have nothing running. I always do things here. So let me do this real quick.
Maybe if you hardwired, I bet if you hardwired his headphones, that would probably do it. Sometimes wireless headphones are kind of funky. Guys, thank you so much for being patient with this process. We'll make up for this we'll make up this lost time on the back end on the second hour. So don't sweat it. So while he's doing whatever he's going to do, what did you guys think of that sort of the first answer? I mean, I it was a little choppy, but I got the idea. I mean, I think you guys did as well. And worst case scenario, Bill's telling me we could have him call in. So, worst case, we'll do a call-in interview with him. But yeah, that's gonna suck because I've got some stuff from Twitter that I wanted to bring up to him. But we'll see. Let's see what happens. But what did you guys think of that first hour or that first question? Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's right. There is a lot of weird discrepancies that have been over these last couple of years. I think what's interesting to me is how much of those are just because it is a very nebulous, confusing issue, right? Like, especially when you get into the DoD programs, there's so much of minutia and lots of things that we're not privy to. How the DoD works. So a lot of that I think might be understandable. I'm curious to know kind of where Steven's what he thinks the intentions and the impetus of the discrepancies are.
Yeah, Jane, you were saying?
Yeah, and hopefully I'll get a chance to ask Steven this later, but maybe while we're waiting on him, you guys could chime in here because I think it's related. I'm just wondering how much covering the politics around all of this. I mean, I know we have to do it, but how much covering all the politics and hearsay and this government agent did this and this person on Twitter said this, how much of that is relevant or helpful for actually finding out the truth about what's going on with this phenomenon? How often is it overlapping versus distracting? or is it just two completely separate but related areas now, fields of study now, right? Because they both require so much time. Like Steven's saying, like that's what it made me think of. He went through articles like week after week over a pretty big time span, and it's a lot. It's a like Rather saying there's a lot of confusion in it, and
well, he's back. Hopefully he caught most of that question. Hopefully his audio is fixed. All right, let's give it another shot. What say you, Mr. Greenstreet?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How do I sound?
It's a little bit of it's a little the same.
You talk in slow motion at my work.
Yeah. Okay. You know what I'm gonna do? I don't know if you notice. Yeah. It's weird.
A little better.
It might be a little. Let's give it a shot. If it's not better, we have a phone number in the private chat here, so you could call into the radio station, and then we could get a clearer line. But we just won't be able to see your face or show you things on video unless you're watching through the live stream, but it'll be delayed, so that might be weird. Or you just stay here and we'll take you off screen and then you could call in. Anyway, sorry for trying to figure out this live stream as we're live doing the show, but hey, first world problems. These things are going to happen. All right, so let's give it a shot. So basically Jane was asking, and Rather was sort of backing it up, that there has been a lot of confusion here in the last year in regards to this story. And so, is the first episode of Basement Office, you've said a few times that you're kind of like correcting or going back and re-examining every single thing you said in the first 2 seasons of the show. And a lot of this stuff is getting corrected, or you're adding more clarity to it. So I guess what was either the biggest mistake or the biggest sort of the most clarification you added to the things you went back over?
Well, I was wrong. So, and I bring this up in the episode. Any episode.
All right, hold that thought. I don't want to kill you. I don't want you to go through this whole thing. So
I don't want you to kill anybody either.
Yeah, I don't want to kill anybody either. So just call in on the hotline. We'll patch you in through the hotline and keep your video up. So if there's anything video-wise we need to present, you could still watch it. Does that make sense?
It says my video. They're saying my video is fine, but I'm echoing.
Yeah.
Maybe you could keep the video on and mute the video, but then have the phone on as well.
I think hardwired headphones. We'll see. All right. We're like both production guys here trying to figure this out on the fly. Again, you guys, thank you so much for the patience. This usually doesn't happen.
Live podcasting.
Yeah. Am I echoing? Wait, am I still echoing?
Yeah.
Still? Weird. Okay.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just choppy. For some reason, the audio is very just choppy at the end of the things that you say. It's odd. But yeah, just call in, keep your video up, and I think this will work out fine either way.
Okay, I'm gonna call into something.
You're gonna what?
I'm gonna call.
Okay, cool. You see the number in there, right? So go to the private chat and okay, cool. He sees it. All right. So I'm gonna bring his video down.
This is gonna
work. This is totally gonna work.
Bear with us.
Bear with us. This is gonna work just fine. Steven will still be able to see what we're presenting to him, and still be able to answer our questions, and also walk us through the new trailer and all those things. So just give us a second here, and then we'll have Steven pick back up on that question that we asked. So my gosh, this is the first time this has happened in a while. So.
Yeah, how many episodes?
Over 300. Yeah, over 300. All right, let's bring in Bill, because we got to bring in Bill, but Bill backed out of the studio, so we got to get Bill back in.
This is Bill.
Oh, that is Bill. Oh, okay. Yeah, he changed. Okay, he changed his. All right, got it. You're on top of it, Rather.
Now we got the intimidating Steven Greenstreet.
And I'll probably edit this for the I'll probably edit this for the podcast. But yeah, so while we're getting that straightened out, let's see. Okay.
I'm here. You hear me?
Oh, there you okay, yeah, we hear you. Excellent. So you hear us, you see us, everything's good?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Perfect, man. All right. Thank you so much for working through it with us. We appreciate it. So I'm sorry, we cut you off. What were you about to say?
No, okay, so just test 1, 2, 3, want to make sure we're good,
Sounds
right?
wonderful. Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, so the first episode is basically, and I literally say this in the first episode, is I was wrong. Any episode of the Basement Office that I did before this season that regarding ATIP and Lou Elizondo and all that stuff, I was wrong. Like I look back on those episodes now and I'm just like, oh my God, like I was off the mark. So that's just a little part of this episode, really. It's really just, and I didn't make this episode really for fans of UFOs or fans of the Basement Office, or I made it for anyone who's interested in this topic and doesn't know anything about the topic, or they're wondering, like, what's going on. Like, I hope this episode kind of gives them a solid kind of, here's what's up. And I going along with, Brian Bender, those kind of like, tweets that he had last week, I know he eventually like walked them back a little bit, but I felt the same way. Like when he tweeted that, I was like, wow, and I don't think I'm alone either. Like I do feel, as Brian put it, purposely misled, especially, early on.
What's funny? I just remember Steven asking you about Luis Elizondo and some other people, and you had expressed some skepticism about it, but not like a full-hearted skepticism, which I remember feeling like I expected that from you back in an interview we did a while ago. So I know that you've tweeted and given examples, but is there one particular event or story or confusion or disinformation that put you over the edge?
Yes. But I don't want to get into it because that's revealed in this episode. So I don't really want to spoil this episode. All I'll say is that towards the end of May 2021, last year, something happened and I stayed up all night just kind of having this kind of freak out moment. And like, oh my God, like, wait, this means this. And then this, wait a minute, now this equals, and it wasn't really until after that last Basement Office episode in June where I really started going, wait, what if I'm totally wrong? But not only what if I'm wrong, but what if everyone has been wrong? And I mean everyone. What if everyone has been wrong about this? And it's so funny because it was very similar to when I grew up Mormon in the Mormon church, like devout, like we're talking 24/7 Mormon family. And I went on a Mormon mission. I did the whole thing. Like my future was going to be like Mormonism. That was
real quick, if I could ask, at what age did that end? Or did it end, or do you kind of continue it, parts of it?
No. Yeah. So Mormonism for me, so that would be 23, 24. We're talking a while ago when I left the church. But my process was very similar to this process with this whole UFO thing, where it was like I had like a snap out of it moment where I was like, well, wait a minute, like what if this? And I started asking myself hard questions and couldn't find good answers. And it, when I entered the UFO conversation kind of late, guys. This was spring 2019. So Greenstreet doesn't enter the scene and enter the party until May 2019. So it had already been a year plus of this story developing. And I was like moderately interested in it before 2019. I was like, oh, wow, that's so cool. This is probably, something fun. I was excited about it. And, but when I entered it, it was like, I gave the benefit of the doubt to the whole story, to the basics of the story. Because at that point, like the Times, Politico, CNN, Fox, it wasn't like a left-leaning thing. It wasn't like a right-leaning thing. It was like everyone seemed to be on board, especially by 2019. It was just like accepted universally by the press, at least, that the basics were true. And so I made the admitted mistake of starting there. Like, I'm going to start assuming that 99% of the media didn't get it wrong. So I started in 2019 with, okay, I have to start catching up here, and everyone is saying this is the way it is, so this is the way it is, and I'm going to start here and then go on my own journey. And as it turns out, that was everyone was wrong. And I think history, a couple of years from now, it's going to be interesting to look back in retrospect and see how this developed. And it's fascinating. Anthropologically, it's one of the most fascinating things, looking back on things in retrospect, like how a story becomes a legend, and how fast a story can become a legend, and how that happens in the modern world. That's like fascinating to me. And I go into that in the new episode.
So when you say everyone's wrong, do you mean everyone, including David Fravor and Alex Dietrich? Like, what they saw, their account of it was,
No.
do you think that's wrong?
No, I meant like the basics of the story. Sorry. So to reiterate, when I came in 2019, it was the Pentagon had a UFO program. The head of that UFO program was Lou Elizondo, who discovered that the phenomena of UFOs is real, and we need to do something about it. So like those four basic things, that basic story, I went into it assuming, mistakenly, but assuming that, okay, at least that's correct, because everyone seems to be agreeing on that, which is surprising because, when I did episode 1 of The Basement Office, my producer was like, oh, well, there have been hundreds of news stories, but we should get our own Pentagon statement. We should at least be able to say we got our own exclusive statement from the Pentagon. And I remember laughing, going like, okay, so I'll just get this, I'll get the same statement that everyone else has gotten. Fine. Okay, I'll do that. And then I remember this. I remember going like, wait, has the Pentagon given a statement on this? And I remember in 2019 digging, being like, wait, the Pentagon really hasn't given that many statements on this. Why? What's going on? Like, I remember going like, wait, I would have thought they would have been in front of this and all over it, and because it was their program, and apparently the Pentagon is revealing this. And so I was struck by, they haven't given that many statements. And so when I reached out to Sherwood and he gave me the statement that yes, ATIP investigated UFOs, that was like this big bombshell. And I couldn't believe that. I was like, well, wait, how did I release a bombshell a year plus into this story over something basic, which is pick up the phone, call the Pentagon. Hey, is this true? Oh, it is? Okay, bye. It was like, I was happy to have a bombshell story, but at the same time, I was also surprised. It's like, how come no one else has gotten this statement? How come no one else has asked this basic question? And then also Sherwood, in that same statement, said that Elizondo had no responsibilities with regard to ATIP. And that threw me off because for two reasons. One, everyone had accepted. I mean, everyone was running headlines about Lou Elizondo, director, ATIP. And now the Pentagon is saying, no, he had no responsibilities with ATIP. And I was like, wait, what? And then it was also surprising to me. I was like, well, wait, how come I'm the first one to get this statement? Is no one else asking this? Why is no one else asking this? Did no one really pick up the phone? Was I really the first one to do that? And that was, subconsciously at least, a little disappointing to me. That like I had to discover that no, people weren't picking up the phone to ask basic questions of the Pentagon. So that was a bit of a red flag. Obviously, I wrote a story on that and it never published. I wrote a story on Sherwood's statement and it never published. And then I got scooped by Keith Kloor, which if I had to list some of the most horrible things that could happen to you, one of the top is getting scooped by Keith Kloor.
What's your question to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, so the DoD programs are very kind of nuanced, and there's a lot of complexity there with, ATIP versus OSAP. And I guess my question is, do you think that there's a good faith reason why some of these discrepancies might happen? Just kind of trying to gloss over some of the complexities to get a more simplified, easily digestible story out there? Or do you think that there's more kind of nefarious factors at play behind the confusion?
The confusion about Elizondo and ATIP?
Yeah.
No, it was deliberate. It was deliberate. It was deliberate. Mellon just as recently as March admitted publicly he is proactively not telling Congress about OSAP, about Bass, about Skinwalker, and that's a microcosm for what happened way back in 2017. Think about it, guys. Think about it for a second. The actual program managers of the actual official Pentagon program, OSAP, say on the record that the original reporting about the Pentagon program contained maybe 3% of the truth. Like, they're on record saying that 3%, it maybe covered 3%. That means 97% of the actual Pentagon program wasn't reported. It wasn't in there. We didn't get the full story. And I get that. Like, I actually can understand that, because if the story had been Skinwalker's at the Pentagon, if it had been about werewolves and poltergeists and this other phenomena stuff, the story either wouldn't have been printed or it would have been laughed at and couched as government waste, and it probably would have died on a meme vine.
Well, so then isn't that a good strategy though, to not mention those things?
If your strategy is to not tell the truth and to get your way, yes. If your strategy is that's propaganda. Look it up, dictionary of propaganda. Look up the dictionary definition of propaganda. That is propaganda.
So then what's the propaganda? But then what's the propaganda for? There's got to be an initiative for that propaganda. So then what? I'm assuming you have some kind of idea why they would be making these moves. If they're lying to get their way, to what ends? What's their goal? What are they trying to get?
I don't care. I don't care. I really don't care what their end goal is. I just know that we were misled. I know that I was lied to, and I know the facts weren't right. That's what I care about. I could care less why they're doing it. To me, that's a moot point. The point here is that it happened. And their reasoning to do it is, okay, great, we can eventually get there, but I want to report that things were wrong. And I think that that's important. And, look, my life would be so much easier if I just towed the line and went with it, because I got to tell you, it's fun. It is. It's fun and intoxicating to see people head first into the story. If I could, I was excited. Time travel 2 years ago. Every time Elizondo did an interview, I was like, oh, whoa, what kind of new stuff is he being brave enough to share with us this time? And, waiting, salivating for the next Corbell drop or, whatever. That's fun. My life is easier if I'm there. But I allowed myself, and it's ironic. They say OSAP, the actual program, I think Knapp and Kelleher, they say you know, we went where the evidence led us. We didn't go in looking for werewolves. We didn't go in looking for goblins. We went where the evidence led us, and this is where it led us. And I'm saying the same thing. Is, you know, I did an about face a year ago, and I just went where the evidence led me, and that's where I am now, man. I mean, I don't know, you know, I can't speak to, like, I know for a fact, I don't even think the Pentagon was aware what the hell was going on with this program, honestly, because the program managers are open, emphatic about hiding OSAP from the Pentagon. They're out there. I mean, a direct quote from Lakatsky is, at the Pentagon, they had no idea I was running Skinwalker Ranch. They had no idea whatsoever. That's a direct quote. So I think there was a big mix-up where, you know, you have a contract that doesn't mention UFOs, that doesn't mention paranormal phenomena. Money is exchanged, and then all this stuff is happening. You've got program managers admitting on the record, we didn't tell everyone what we were doing. And
well,
then
let me ask you this then. I mean, point to how many different kinds of contracts that are given like that have the exact same issues, and don't get pointed out, and that are much bigger contracts, like from a budget standpoint. And how many times does the government admit it's wrong? Like, that's not what it does. Like, they're not good at doing that. Like, for me, and I understand what you're saying, but for me, I think an important part of this is trying to figure out that motivation, because if the motivation is a genuine effort to try and get some good UAP data, or if that's part of the effort, and let's say another part of the effort is making Congress aware of a very real drone issue that the United States military has on its hands, not mentioning the part where programs saw werewolves and dino beavers, I feel like is a good tactical sort of into getting what ultimately you're looking for. And I mean, on a $22 million program, sure, I could get super pissed that those details aren't in there, or I could consider it, you know, oh, they're just being manipulative, or it's propaganda. But I guess I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here.
Okay, you know, I get it, but do you want, if I was a lawmaker, right, and someone with a history of embellishing stories, conveniently leaving out facts, etc., came to me and wanted to tell me that there's this pressing issue that demands government money and time and resources, I would have that. All of those things would be red flags. I don't want to be briefed I don't want someone coming to me with a specific agenda where they're like leaving out crucial parts of a story. I want full context. I want to know, where is this coming from? I want to know who you are and why you're here. And I think there is a history of some of these folks presenting themselves as something that they're not, something that they're absolutely not. And I think that's critical. I think that's important. I think that should be considered, you know?
Well, I'm not saying
the mean thing, you know? I don't buy it.
Well, I'm not saying it shouldn't be considered, but what I am saying is, like, I think also the flip side of that coin is that I don't think lawmakers are relying on just two guys who were at some point very credible and are trying to, you know, sell this, if this is true, this piece of propaganda to you know, justify whatever means they're looking for, versus, like, they've also put pilots and made them aware of I think these senators, these lawmakers, are seeing other things outside of what's just being told to them. And I think they're also considering those whatever they're seeing in these classified briefings are not just two people standing in front of them and saying, oh, well, you know, you got to believe us because of this and this. I think they're seeing video. I think they're seeing sensitive sensor data equipment. I think they're getting pilot testimonies in these briefings. And I think that's the compelling stuff. Like this story about OSAP and ATIP, like they don't give a they don't care. They don't care about that stuff. And so if I was a lawmaker, honestly, I wouldn't care about that stuff either. And I think if you were a lawmaker, I don't think you'd care either. You'd want to see the video. You'd want to hear the pilots. Like, those are the things that are going to move the needle for the lawmakers. I think the two other guys, if anything, are sort of icing on the cake, or if you even want to consider it, you know, their marketing managers or whatever to make sure that this gets through, legally speaking. They're the ones, you know, going to Gillibrand and saying, hey, I'd put this in there if I were you, or I'd word it like this or whatever. Like, you could see their fingerprints on it. So I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, like, damn, dude, if this gets us a new office and more clarity on this topic, then I think all of that other stuff, I don't know if it matters, especially in a world and in a Congress where this stuff happens all the time on a much bigger, much more nefarious level.
Well, I mean, I honestly think that, going with that, I think that's a good point. I think there are like way bigger issues here, and a lot of this is just like some detour and a distraction. But I think it's disingenuous to say that these are not the faces of this topic. To downplay Elizondo, there's a lot of goalposts moving. To downplay the role of Elizondo, the influence of Mellon, you know, folks like this is own it. These guys have moved mountains. They've moved mountains. You know, I know TTSA fell apart, but to say they were not influential into, you know, breaking down doors in Capitol Hill, that's not true at all. Now, you say things like, you know, I think Congress is seeing this, and I think something, you know, is happening. That's fine. And that's exciting, and that's great. I do believe that there is an ongoing issue, but I don't think it's either or. I don't think one has to die because the other one sucks, or the other one isn't true. So they have to, you know, I don't think it's either or. I do believe in a phenomena, and I do believe in an ongoing air safety issue. You know, I just think it's semi-disappointing and semi-distracting that there are folks who are being the face of that real issue have questionable, if not like outright, you know, dishonest things in their past. So that's my issue. Like, issue's real. There's a real issue, real safety issue, possible national security issue. I think the current faces could use some work. I think we could use some new faces on this job, you know, and so anyway, that's it. And I'm not going to allow people to move the goalpost of like, well, ATIP doesn't matter anymore. OSEP doesn't matter anymore. Yes, it fucking does. Like, it does matter. It matters because that's what we were told. That was the GPS in 2017. The GPS voice came on and said, take exit ATIP. And we all went off on the exit, right? We were told, here's what happened, here's what's going on, take the exit, and we're on this trajectory. And anyway, sorry for cursing.
No, that's okay. It's all right. No, it's a passionate conversation. Jane, I want to let you get in here. What are your questions that you've?
Well, I gotta say, I welcome everybody to the Elizondo skepticism. It's been lonely, and I'm glad to have more people jump on the bandwagon. So I get that, and Elizondo is really just a symbol, really, for like any, you know, interchange, just anybody tied to the government, essentially, who appears to be given some green light to talk about this, I guess. But my concern is that we're talking about a lot more about humans, and it's like this cult of personality stuff, and we're not really talking about the phenomenon anymore or aliens anymore. And so I know that we'll get to all these other questions, controversy, but I'm just curious, Steven, what you feel about the actual phenomenon, if that's changed over the last few years, of what's really happening with potential aliens. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's an awesome question because, you know, when I left the Mormon religion, I didn't necessarily lose my faith in God. You know, I just was like, this is not it. You know, like, this is not it, you know, but I didn't like become an atheist overnight or anything like that. I still had like an agnostic belief that, you know, that yes, there could and maybe should be something out there. And I'm the same way with UFOs. I'm done with this sect of UFOs, but that doesn't mean I don't believe in UFOs. I do believe that there are real, unexplainable, unexplicable things, UFOs, whatever you want to call them. And I said this to someone the other day. I almost feel like the phenomenon is something personal. The way a religion is almost, it is something personal. And, I really don't want to get into the weeds on spiritual stuff. I don't want to start drawing triangles and talking about the chi, but I think something's out there. I've heard stories from people that are interesting, are very interesting. And, even right now, as I'm talking about it, I get kind of emotional because I think that that's where this is at. And to elevate this a little bit, I don't know why the DOD is involved in this at all, to be honest with you. I mean, other than the whole air safety thing, FAA, whatever, stuff in our skies. Sure. I don't think there's a precedent of any threat. I was excited about the idea of the Galileo project before I kind of like observed that for a while. But, science, that's the next step. I think it should be going where this should be going is an emphasis on science. I've called in Basement Office doing my research. I've called some of the top scientific agencies, independent and government around the world. And most of them are just like either not interested or just don't care about this topic. There's a huge brick wall between our little world on UFO Twitter and like the big scientific institutions taking this seriously. It's still nowhere close. And so I was surprised by that. But anyway, that's a long answer to your question. I hope I answered.
Well, let me ask you a backup to that question real quick, because now I'm curious. Well, if you do think this is propaganda, let's just say you're right. I don't know if I'll go that far, but let's just say you're right. If this set of events set off science looking into this, would that be worth it to you? Like if this in 10 or 15 years turned out to be turned into the greatest scientific discovery ever, wouldn't this little like would you care about ATIP versus ALSAP? Like would we come back to this and go, well, how would we look at it if that was the case?
Yeah, sure. But it's like UFOs weren't invented in 2017.
No, I know they weren't invented in 2017, but I think it's fair to say that science in the last 5 years is definitely starting to have this conversation on a much deeper, much more intellectual level. I mean, you've got Lex Fridman, you got Eric Weinstein, you've got Gary Nolan, you've got Joe Rogan's talking about it. He's not a scientist. Neil deGrasse Tyson, Michio Kaku, like all of these scientists are genuinely starting to talk about this. And even with Avi Loeb looking for money, putting up instruments into finding an answer, at least taking the topic seriously. I think it's been a pretty interesting turn. No, I mean, isn't that worth it?
I don't know, man. I don't know. But when I go back and read ufologists like Stanton Friedman and other ufologists like through the years since the 40s, like I don't know. I think everything is cartoonized and everything's a circus and everything is like packaged in like 3-sentence sound bites. Otherwise people dismiss it nowadays. Like I disagree that there is some like big, deep, ongoing scientific discussion regarding this current thing. I will say that I won't say that hasn't happened. I don't know. I'm not impressed, to be honest with you. I'm not impressed. So it would surprise me if it did lead to some fantastic, all life-changing discovery. I would be flabbergasted. And then I would be the first one to admit I was totally wrong again.
Yeah, I mean, look, well, that's what takes guts, man, is to admit that when you're wrong. And so, like, from that point, I appreciate it. Like, I think having that retrospective sort of attitude on your own work is important, and having those moments, I think, are much more interesting and do a lot more for the topic than just digging your heels in and professing your knowledge is truth. So, we did have a question from Jazz Shaw I wanted to ask you, and he says, could someone please ask Steven if he believes that the Department of Defense and Intel have been lying to Congress about UAP and all its nonsense? I just want to hear that answer.
Has the DOD and the IC been lying to Congress about
UAP?
I don't think so. I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know. My gut, something new, and this is recent, is I think I've traced the Pentagon themselves at a certain level being confused about a lot of this also. It's not like the Pentagon is 12 people in the room. It's like you've got like multiple departments spread over the world, and what one department knows, another department doesn't know. And while we kind of deal with this and you kind of deal with this and communication stuff. So I don't think there's like everyone's getting together at DOD or the intelligence community annual conference and saying, okay, we need to lie to Congress about this. Like, I don't think that's happening or could happen. I do think they're being coy and playing with words, and they're careful, and they've been a pain in the ass to folks like me asking specific questions. I mean, important specific questions. I have asked at like tons of time about things about Skinwalker Ranch, I think, and I don't get a response, or I get a coy copy paste of a previous statement that's like 3 years outdated, and that's not cool. And for the while, I thought it was something intentional. They're hiding something. And I don't think that anymore. I don't think it's like some big nefarious plan. No, I don't.
What do you got,
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that there are kind of two I'd say objectively good things that have kind of come out of the whole Elizondo fiasco since 2017. And that's, that military personnel are reporting UAP sightings now. They're being encouraged to, and that the government is actually looking at those sightings and trying to make some sense of that. And I guess the question to you is, do you agree that those are, objectively good things that should be happening? And do you think that they would have happened if, this news didn't come out in 2017?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's where I shifted gears when I realized what the real issue is here. When I say real issue, I don't mean to be facetious. I meant to see something that I can sink my teeth into. Like, here are the hazard reports. Like, here's the actual documentation. Here are the actual databases within the FAA outlining over 10,000 near misses with commercial airlines and military jets running into balloons, drones, unknowns, weird unknowns. That's a positive. That's a good thing. That's awesome. But it doesn't get play. It really doesn't. Like, it doesn't get as much play as, the face of this real problem. When he goes on, he's interviewed by thehill.com. They're talking about something real, and then he says, I honestly think the facts, and he said the facts point to the alien hypothesis. And you could see the host go, wow, and I'm like, no, it's not wow. Like, people, like, planes full of hundreds of people are flying and almost hitting X, Y, and Z over Arizona. This isn't an exciting wow. Like, anyway, I'm disappointed that like the loudest voices are in a way deflating the real problem by making it sound fun and exciting and, awe-inspiring. And anyway, So that's my answer.
Jane, what do you got?
I want to know what are some of those burning Skinwalker Ranch questions that you're not getting answers to?
Awesome. Okay, good question. So a book comes out, Skinwalker'S at the Pentagon, saying that, a Pentagon program, OSAP, utilized Skinwalker Ranch for the better part of, a year and a half. And they found werewolves and, Lukatsky talks about an infectious agent, a COVID-like agent, and ghosts and people being harmed and kids being tortured and all this stuff. So I reach out to the Pentagon and I go, were you aware this was happening? ? They won't answer it. Were you aware that any DOD resources were ever being spent at Skinwalker Ranch? Ever? They won't answer it. So the only thing they say is, we have no comment on Skinwalker Ranch. It is not a DOD facility, was the only quote I got from Susan Goff. And it's like, you should be able to answer that question. That's infuriating to me. Just own up to it and just say, yeah, it turns out money was spent there. But those are some questions. Other questions I asked about Skinwalker Ranch was, Bass, I asked this of the Pentagon. I said, Bass says they sent you reports talking about Skinwalker Ranch, about their discoveries, about their investigations. Can you confirm you got those reports? They won't answer. They're on the record, the Pentagon saying, in late 2009, after reviewing the reports, it was decided they were of limited value. And they essentially moved to, start squashing OSAP. My question to the Pentagon was, were any of those reports that you read that you decided were of limited value about Skinwalker Ranch? I've asked that 3 times. They won't answer it. So those are some questions I've asked about Skinwalker that have gone unanswered.
I mean, could it just be that the Pentagon doesn't care? And so they didn't look into these things? I feel like with all of the things on the Pentagon's plate, would it be that shocking if they actually answered you truthfully and they were like, yeah, no, we had no idea. Yes, we were aware of the program, but honestly, we had A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z going on, and we just didn't get to it. What would that prove? What would that?
Well, if they responded the way you just asked it, it would prove that the Pentagon doesn't have a handle over their own programs, and that could be, a clue for a bigger problem. If the Pentagon admitted, yeah, some of our programs, we just forgot about, and they kind of ran off the rails. Yeah, that's a huge statement.
But that's not shocking, though, Steven. For me, that's not a shocking statement. I think everybody knows that. Everybody knows that government programs sometimes get lost and the spending gets out of control. It's not the first time. And the fact that they only got $20 million, $22 million, for me is that's a win. Thank God it wasn't 20 billion. And if we had spent 20 billion and we have what we have today, then yes, absolutely, I would be as pissed as you are. But 20, dude, for me, again, I'm just speaking on behalf of me. That's not shocking news for me. That's not oh my God, we got you. This fact exposes a much bigger problem within government. Dude, this is not new.
Right. We know that. But has my reaction to you was, has the Pentagon ever on the record said that? I was reacting to the Pentagon admitting on record, yeah, we got some problems and some of our stuff runs off the rails. That would be an awesome statement. That would be a shocking statement. While we all universally kind of assume things are wrong and things fall through the cracks, to have the government go on the record and admit that, and that would be awesome. That would just be wow, right? That's what I was reacting to. The same way that in May 2019, when Sherwood told me that ATIP was about UFOs, we already had a year and a half of kind of knowing that. But when the Pentagon said that and put ink on paper and was yep, it did, that, it was a big moment because they've come out and said that. So I think, so I'm not either oring you here, meaning I'm not trying to say that like that's not important or that's like a key point here. I'm just saying that if the Pentagon came out and admitted that, that would be a big deal.
Oof, I don't know, man.
Well,
I don't
yeah,
know
I mean,
if it would be a big deal, but I mean, we don't know. Go ahead, rather. Sorry.
yeah, I mean, it kind of seems to me that what probably happened is that OSAP got these $22 million, and they're really on the hook to doing these 36 or 38 DIRD reports about future technology. And my take is that probably didn't cost $22 million, and they probably took the rest of that and kind of did their own ghost hunting, paranormal investigation, and maybe they never even told the Pentagon about that.
Yeah.
So in that case, the Pentagon probably would be just like, yeah, we don't know about Skinwalker, and we know about these DIRDs, and we gave away some money, and that's it.
And a lot of those DIRDs weren't new, meaning they were just rehashed old. A lot of those DIRDs were already previously written, and they just dusted them off and polished them up and turned them in. I know a lot of Eric Davis's DIRDs had been on like Earth Tech International from like 2004. They basically just like grabbed them, made some changes, dusted them off, and sent them to the DIA. I doubt they cost that much at all to do anything with. And then you hear tales from Skinwalker Ranch about, there is no money trail, real money trail where the money went. You've got security guards, talking about, of course, this was later, in like late 2009, 2010, but security guards talking about they couldn't buy coats, gloves, heaters for cabins to keep security guards warm. Like, so they're trying to think about $22 million in the government terms is not a big deal, but $22 million spent over like a year and a half is, you would think at some point you'd see some kind of big money trail on that, or like what was done. At least one big thing, I assume, was done. Well, can we see that? Or what was it? Just trips to Brazil? $60,000 to MUFON? 50 employees? I mean, I don't know. What was our return? What did we get from that? I mean, it either is a big deal or it's not. I mean, in one sense, I'm hearing it's not a big deal. And in one sense, I'm hearing that it is a big deal because it's changing the world. So I'm just trying to figure out where we're at.
Yeah. No, I mean, I understand at the core of what you're saying, the philosophy of what you're talking about. At its core, it could be just straight misappropriation of government funds and people making up this story to sell lawmakers to do what X, Y, and Z, whatever their plans are. But like when I hear this, and then like I'm like, well, look, if we're going to point this out, then my question would be, well, what's our return on the Iraq war that we waged illegally, almost 20 years ago, that lost countless lives and spent, trillions of dollars, and still to this day is an absolute money pit when it comes to our budget, and I think it actually endangers our national security, doesn't strengthen it. Like, well, to me, that's way, like, I don't know if exposing this little thing is going to bring down the house of cards that is this machine, and I mean, for me,
more money is being spent.
Sorry
for interrupting you.
No, please. What was the question?
So no more money and time and resources is being spent on paranormal UFO stuff, which include the same names as those that were involved in 2008 to 2010. That's all over. Nothing else is happening.
No. I mean, well, we're getting the new AOI MSG office, but it's not like it's going to be run by Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon and Tom DeLonge. I mean, I just saw your face. You think that Lou Elizondo is going to be the head of that office?
Oh no, not the head of the office, but I
you think they'll be involved?
I guarantee you, the same names are submitting resumes. I mean, this is a cyclical thing, guys. OSAP was not the first time, fringe believers convinced the government to give them money to do their Star Trek stuff. This is not the first time it happened. I mean, when you look back through history, it's happened like a ton of times. One of the most fascinating new episodes I have about Basement Office coming up is on the cattle mutilation phenomena, especially in the mid 70s. And my jaw dropped when I started getting into that. The pattern was like the same. You had like a real thing, something real was happening, but it wasn't like this big global thing, but something real was happening, appropriated by fringe believers who find a sympathetic voice in the local Colorado press, who prints a front page story that gets local people upset and at arms, which gets like law enforcement and lawmakers involved, which gets the FBI involved. And then this whole deck of cards, this whole domino effect happens. And so it's like similar. It's similar. And I think it comes around and goes around every so often. It comes around and goes around. A lot of these same names, this group of people, when I'm talking about Put Off, I'm talking about, Bigelow goes back decades, Davis, you got Klore and all his stuff.
But when you admit though that if that is the case, I think this time around they're not going to get away with no results. I think there's a lot more public eyes. There's a lot more lawmakers that are hip to the game. I think the Pentagon would be aware of it because the office is being literally built in the Pentagon. So all of these issues that you ran into getting these kinds of answers on, on the Bigelow contract, I mean, I don't know if it's fair to say, but don't you think it would be more a more widely known thing that this program is happening and we expect answers, and there's briefings happening 4 times a year, and we're going to get a public briefing on October 31st. Like, these are all different things that are happening now as the process is being put into place. I mean, do you really think Hal Puthoff and Lou Elizondo and Colin Kelleher and Kate Green and all of these guys are going to be part of this new relaunch, as you put it, almost?
I honestly, I don't know. I know that a lot of those names are the face of it, whether we like it or not. They are the go-to, CNN's doing a story on it, speed dial name that is called, and the face that is put in front of the American public to represent the issue. And I'm saying that's, I mean, that has to change. We have disingenuous people representing this topic. I'm not okay with that.
Huh. So I'm sorry, rather to cut you off. Just last question for me, and I swear. But what would you need to see to make you reverse that position?
Reverse the position that I believe that disingenuous people are representing this topic?
Yeah, who would you want to see represent this topic?
Who would I want to see represent? You mean who's on the news talking about this?
Sure, yeah, or maybe somebody that you think is not in the news that you think would be a good spokesperson for the Department of Defense.
John Kirby. I mean, you would think like someone if there's a big issue, is giving the statement about the big issue, legitimizing and giving the statement about the big issue. You would have the top defense writers writing about this almost every day. You would have, this would be covered. This would be a weekly segment. It wouldn't just be isolated to Tucker Carlson at night and his whatever wacky documentaries he's making. It shouldn't be isolated there. If this is a real big issue, it should have the weekly coverage that a lot of other issues have in this country that are touched on. If not nightly, they're at least touched on weekly, a weekly update on whatever bill, on whatever, gay rights, women's rights, whatever's going on in this country, it's touched on. And it's still represented and treated as this like thing in the corner. It really is. And I think the problem is the people representing it. the people representing it, there's only so much. There's a ceiling there. And I think that's it's harming the issue, in my opinion. And when I say issue, I don't mean alien UFOs. I mean an air safety issue. And I'm putting the like woo stuff aside. You know, the real issue. They're a distraction, and they are, in my opinion, harming the necessity of the real issue. That's just my opinion.
Rather, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I cut you off. What were you saying?
Well, it seems to me that, potentially the real problem might be that there's just a lack of transparency, and we're not seeing this evidence. We're not seeing what the UAP task force is actually showing to Congress and the videos and such. And so I guess my question to you is, it seems like people on your side of the fence and the believers, I think that you could all probably agree that we want the data, right? The data will either prove that this is all has a kernel of weirdness to it, or it will prove that it's all, BS. So would you advocate for transparency and exposing of data to kind of solve this problem?
Yeah. Transparency. Let's see the data, but let's define data. Like, are we talking pie charts and graphs and measurements and maps and what do we do? I don't know. 4 years later, guys, I just felt like we'd see something or have something else. And, I think the believers feel the same way. I feel like the believers are frustrated, and they're like, I felt like at this point we'd be further along. And to like justify that within their heads, they go, oh, there must be a conspiracy. The data is being withheld, and that's why we don't know. And
I think that's where the problem is that for me, I think people are setting their expectations too high. It's only been 4 years. For me, I see the political when you pay attention to politics, you understand how bills are made. You understand how long. I mean, here we are. We're 300 in when the first slave arrived in this country, and we still, on some level, African Americans are not treated equally. And it's 2022. So you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't. I don't know. I don't know what the hell I'm trying to say. I guess I'm like, I think everyone's frustrated, but those expectations, like sometimes it takes 20, 30 years to get these things in the way that we all wanted to see them 4 years into the process. Like, to me, political processes don't happen in 4 years that quickly. At least not a conversation like this.
Why is it political? That's my issue. Is this a political issue? Are we talking about political? Well, if it's real, it's scientific. It shouldn't be politics.
I think it should be both. It should be I mean, do you imagine a world where this announcement is made that we're not alone in the universe to not come from government whatsoever?
That we're not alone in the universe. I mean,
if let's just say that's our definition of disclosure, right? That we're being visited by non-human intelligence and these things that we're seeing in the sky are real. Let's just say that is the definition. That's what everybody wants to get to. Like, if that did happen, you don't think part of that discussion is going to be coming from government? They're going to have a word in it. They're going to have a part in this discussion, whether we like it or not.
Sure, they're going to want to take some credit for something they didn't do. Sure, that's what government does.
Of course,
it's the scientists who find that. The scientists are going to do that and find and they're going to pick a representative to represent. I mean, like the movie Contact with Jodie Foster. They made a discovery, and even though she made the discovery, they picked this government stooge to be the face of it, and she was really bummed about that. Yeah, I could totally see that happening, but I don't know, part of me thinks that I just cringe when I hear it say it's a political issue. I mean,
I don't think
as jaw-dropping. I know it's not as jaw-dropping, but water on Mars wasn't a political issue. It was just holy crap, there's water on Mars. Here's NASA. Here's the photos. it was like scientific. You didn't have like congressmen like.
Yeah, but hold on a second. Like, I mean, when we landed on the moon, that was a political triumph, you know, like that was an initiative started by the government that wouldn't have been done without the initiative set by the president of the United States. Like that led to some wonderful discoveries and wonderful things. I just think like, I think this conversation, whether people like it or not, like, I think there are segments of our government representatives that also have an interest in this, that are also very curious about this, and luckily for them, they get a peep behind the window, and I think they're seeing some exciting things. They may not have all of it right, but there's got to be some of this that they're seeing where they're going, okay, I think we need to get in front of this
but
from a political perspective.
It doesn't necessarily correlate. Let me just throw this out here. You can have politicians that are interested. Let's stop talking about UFOs for a second, and let's talk about something a little more concrete. I don't know. I'm obsessed with birds right now. Okay, I just discovered like the complexity of bird calls, and I'm like absolutely down the rabbit hole of that right now. So you can have a bunch of bird watchers that are watching birds every single day. They're reading books about birds. They're the person you go to talk about the birds, right? And then you have the politicians that are, we need to raise money for bird preservation and for this park because the bird watchers told me, right? If you want to know about the birds, go talk to the bird watchers. Now, you might still need to follow the politics of the birds, and that might influence whether you vote on something or not, but it's not necessarily going to correlate. It could be completely opposite, actually. And so I think this show and having Steven on to talk about this, I think we need to keep everybody in check and not take it for granted and assume that just because there's a genuine politician that's interested in it, that they're going to bring us any closer to the truth. They could bring us way off, like derail us way, way off.
Well, I don't think the point is whether or not they're going to bring us closer to the truth. My point is that when this discussion does happen at a national level, you can bet your bottom dollar the government's going to be part of the message. They're going to be part of the fact sharing when it comes to trying to get people on the same page, just like they do with, you know, or try to do with anything else when it comes to national, either, domestic policy or foreign policy.
Yeah, what has to happen for that to happen, though?
Right.
What has to happen for that to happen? What I don't understand. These things have been zipping around our skies for decades, if not centuries and millennia, right? So if that's not good enough, what do we need? We have congressmen getting briefings with supposedly HD videos of supposedly non-human craft. So, okay, so what's it going to take? What do we need?
Well, I mean, it seems like it's going to take a new office to start looking at this. That's going to have to be beholden to lawmakers. And I think first, I think we have to have the patience to the office has not even been set. We don't even know what the budget is for it. We don't know what they're looking at. I mean, I'd like to see what this office produces in 2 to 3, 4 years when there's a new election cycle. I think if at that point we're at the same place that we are today, then I think we've got a legitimate argument. And I will be here going, you know what? I was wrong. Steven was right. I've got no problem doing that. But to me, it's just, I think I hate to repeat the talking point, but I think it is a process and not a sprint.
Yeah. I think you have existed, though. The version of you has existed throughout the decades who has said exactly what you just said. They have said, well, this is happening, so I'll wait a few years, and then if it doesn't happen, then, I'll concede or I'll be frustrated or whatever. I think it's, again, going back, this is cyclical. We're in the middle of a cycle. And
it's funny you say that. I was listening to Stan Friedman last night because I'm doing a little research on him, and he was saying the exact same thing, almost verbatim, as what I'm saying now. But I think the difference was, and the thing that I took back from it is, he was working off of things like the Condon Report and the Blue Book Report, which had been written almost a decade before he came to the scene, and there was no current laws, no current lawmakers at that time talking about what they're seeing in classified briefings, and it being a bipartisan thing. I mean, both sides of the parties are talking about this, and And I think those are the differences. Now, again, I could be wrong and you could be absolutely right. And this could be a cyclical thing that I'm just falling for. But I mean, what other options do I have, man? What other than what, I'm not a scientist. I can't go out there and measure these things. I don't have budgets to go make films and do the boots on the ground investigations that everybody clamors for. Like, what else can we do? This is kind of the position at the table we've been dealt.
Right. Yeah. And I want to say that, I'm not against. I don't want people to think that like I want to prove you wrong. I don't want to prove you wrong or anyone in this panel wrong. I think it's rad that you guys, believe what you believe. Jane just brought up she's into like birds and bird calls, and like that's awesome, and that should be encouraged. And I think that that's cool. And I say go down that rabbit hole, Jane. Like
Just watch
buy
me.
some of the mimic flutes, buy some of the bird flutes,
Wait.
and knock yourself out. But if Jane, where I have a problem is if Jane embellished a story, and because of this embellished story got on the cover of the New York Times, which caught the attention of lawmakers, which caught the attention of the international press, and she's suddenly like everywhere pushing for this like specific thing, I would then, if I dug into it and I found out that she had embellished, that she had been disingenuous, I would want to bring that up so that people know where we're at. That doesn't mean I'm like against birds or I'm against her passion. I'm against, a manipulative story is what I'm against. And I guess going all the way back, that's what my new Basement Office season is about. It's not just about ATIP and OSAP. I get that out of the way in the first episode, and then I move on to Skinwalker, and I do cattle mutilations, and I do UFOs and nukes. And so it's about going back and seeing how much of this was embellished, because let's be honest, and let's be passionate about the real stuff. Okay, let's get rid of the embellished and stuff we can disregard, and let's get passionate about the nuggets that stick behind, the nuggets that are real. Anyway, so that's where I'm at, guys.
Well, okay, so I don't want to keep you for too much longer because you agreed to an hour, but we had those technical difficulties, so I'm trying to keep you a little bit longer. But I wanted to get into sort of what you were just talking about. So there's the thing and this is just one of your critiques, right? We'll get into some of the critiques that people have questions for you on. I hope this is not an uncomfortable part of the conversation, but these are a lot of questions that folks were asking. Mine would be like, like you're just as confusing as Lou Elizondo. Like you were just in the Terror in the Sky movie. You just did Ancient Aliens. You did the Basement Office. Now you're reversing course on the Basement Office. You work with Nick Pope, who some people think is a complete evil person. Like there's all of these conflicting things. Like I don't think he's evil. But I'm just saying, so like how do you
think Nick Pope is evil?
Some people do. Yeah, some people think Nick Pope is absolutely evil. He's been on this show.
He likes country music, guys.
He likes country music. Now, I mean, some people think just like they think with you that you're a right-wing nut job. Like that's the critique. That's the reason why we shouldn't listen to you. That's what they put up every time you say something that is factually correct or bothers people. That's the first thing they go to. So I guess my question is like, what do you say to that sort of like confusing message?
What confusing message?
Well, just like, again, like like here you are, you're saying on one hand, you want to get to the bottom of OSAP, ATIP, and you want the truth out of these things.
Yeah. And
yet you're on Ancient Aliens, which is a show that primarily is pretty quirky, pretty wacky, and I don't know how much truth is connected to it. You just got a whole bunch of shit for doing that movie, A Terror in the Sky, where they took one sentence out of probably God knows how many hours of footage you took with them and put it into a movie to fit their narrative. But I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's just like the message from you is, I mean, you were just videotaping UFOs off the, close to where you live out here in California and posting them on Twitter. Like, it was like you're all over the place. That's fair to say, right?
I don't think so. No,
No?
not at all. I mean,
Okay.
no, I mean, I saw an unidentified flying object that was, it stuck in the sky for about 20 minutes. I wasn't the only one around that thought it was weird. I filmed it and, had, some pretty smart people analyze it to try to decide what it was, and then ultimately arrived at a hypothesis that it was a coaxial drone. I'm not sure how, like, for example, that makes me a hypocrite.
No, I'm just speaking of optics. I'm not saying it makes you a hypocrite. I'm just saying it's some people will look at you and go, damn it, dude, like, what side are you on? Like, do you believe us or you don't? Because like you're questioning the heroes or the narrative or whatever you want to call them, and at the same, and kind of dumping all over it. You're kind of breaking hearts, and then at the same time, like, you're seeing UFOs and you're doing Ancient Aliens. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Ancient Aliens. So let me tell you about Ancient Aliens. So that was, they filmed that. So as I said in the beginning of this whole interview, between May and June of last year is when I started to kind of, fall off the UFO rails. I was interviewed for Ancient Aliens in, I want to say May or June. It was one of those 2 months. And then Tear in the Sky was like the same month. And with Tear in the Sky, the UAPX guys said, hey, we're going to be like 10 minutes from your house. We're shooting a documentary. Why don't you come up and see the cool stuff that we're doing? And I was like, hell yeah, I'll do that. So I went up there and they were filming a documentary and I was asked if I could be interviewed. And I said, well, show me what you're doing first. And they gave me a tour and it was actually pretty awesome. I mean, on the rooftop, you guys have seen the movie. So like on that rooftop and like, they walked me through like every piece of equipment and they were like, here's some of the stuff that we've gathered from this. And here's some of the visuals from this. And I was just like, holy crap, this is amazing. Like, this is when I say I want scientists more kind of like hands-on involved, this was like what I was picturing in my head. And I was like, this is exciting. And then they showed me this triangle UAP and they played it and it was pretty clear. And they played it over and over and I was trying to debunk it. I was like, no, that's a plane. But I was like, well, wait a minute, like that can't be a plane. And so it excited me. And it was like the first time I'd felt excited about the topic in like months at that point. So I was like, hell yeah, interview me. And so they sat me down and did the interview. I actually haven't seen it yet, guys. I haven't seen the documentary. So I don't know how it works out. But with Ancient Aliens, with UFO, so I was on this trajectory. And as soon as I got into UFOs, my Twitter followers go up. And every episode that I release, people love me more. And every time I release a new story, people are excited about me. And that can get addicting. You can feel that like adoration. And you're like, oh, this is the next thing that I'm doing. I'm doing UFOs now because people love me for it,
Right.
And so what's the next obvious step is to like, oh, all of these people go on UFO shows. And so when they called me and said, we want you on Ancient Aliens, specifically talking about your investigation into X, Y, and Z, I was like, great, hell yeah, I'll do that. That sounds fun. And so I went up and did it and it was fun. And then, I felt like if I wanted to, guys, I swear to God, if I wanted to, I could have just towed the line and kept on that trajectory. And I could have had my own UFO show. Look, I'm not going to get into details of behind the scenes stuff, but I could have had my own cable show and I could have had my own whatever. And something happened to me in May and June. I was on the inner circle. I was a voice for people who wanted their messaging out. I was the message boy, and I felt like I was becoming the message boy. And I was on phone calls behind the scenes, and I was on chats behind the scenes, and I just got this gross feeling in my stomach. it was like selling out. It was basically like selling out. You know, that feeling you get where you're like, am I going to sell out? And to get more of the dopamine. And I was like, this is gross. And some of the stuff I heard behind the scenes, I was like, whoa, wait, what? And so I started really drifting away, and cut to a year later, I'm here. And I'm not on Ancient Aliens anymore.
Yeah, can you share what some
answer.
of the weird stuff that you heard was that kind of drew you away, that you thought was upsetting?
I will. Look, I don't think it's fair to, I don't like saying, oh, I am not, you know, I don't like not naming names and being coy and stuff like that. I do plan on being more specific about this.
You're writing a book, aren't you?
So, yeah, I'm not writing a book.
OnlyFans.
I'll tell you what, like, let me just tell you one of the first things I heard. From mouth to ears. God damn it, everyone's making money off this except for us. God damn it, everyone's seems to be making money off this except for us. And I was like, okay. So that was one of the things that I heard where it was like, I started to realize priorities were like very, very, very different. And there is a struggle for narrative. It's so high school, though. It's like so stupid. But behind the scenes, and I'm sure some people notice, is like there's some struggle for narrative of who's going to be the big king UFO person. And, you know, there's a few conflicting narratives. You know, you had Greer, and then there was Elizondo, and then I think Lakatsky entered the game but didn't really want to like do the podcast tour, so he's kind of like drifted apart. But there is this weird struggle, and it's almost like who's going to be class president, and it's bizarre. And I was behind the scenes on some of that, is all I'll say for now.
Wow. When do you plan on talking more about that? In what setting, I guess?
Is it going to be on a
Difficult.
basement office?
Want to come on my YouTube channel?
Yeah, later on. Let's get these episodes out, and then like I think I'll be like more comfortable like talking about it.
Yeah.
Before I go, can I just do something?
Yeah. What do you want to do?
Recently discovered,
Yeah.
and this is I'm maybe perhaps rather of all people here will maybe find this interesting if you haven't already discovered it yourself. But I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
So rather, I sent you a screen grab of Elizondo's request to release Gimbal Go Fast. I had the highlights in red arrow on it.
Oh no, you sent that to me, but yes, I've got it. Let me pull it up. Give me 1 second. I'm pulling it up right now.
Oh.
Nope, that's a video file. Just give me 1 sec. Sorry.
No problem. So anyway, so while he's pulling that up, I'll explain. So do you guys know what the National Program Special Management Staff is? Have you heard of it?
No.
National Program Special Management Staff.
No.
Lou Elizondo was the director of the National Program Special Management Staff, NPSMS. And when you pull up the request, you know how he has he submitted to have Gimbal Go Fast released from the DoD. You know that release form that Lou Elizondo, signed, and he wanted to get those videos released.
Drones and balloons.
So drones and balloons, but he put his name and title on there, and his title on that form was the Director of National Programs Special Management Staff. And, there was an article. So I was like interested in that office, and I was interested in that title, because it doesn't say Director ATIP, which is what the Times says. If you read the Times, it says the videos were, there we go. So if you look on the right side, this is the form, Director, National Program Special Management Staff at OUSDI. And the arrow is pointing to the acronym there. So I was like Googling around for National Programs Special Management Staff. Now, are you guys familiar with what other portfolios Elizondo was working on around the same time? Yes,
I mean,
no?
I would assume ATIP.
What time was that?
I mean, would this be during the Afghanistan period or?
So no, this is 2016. So Elizondo was involved with, at least tangentially with the prosecution of some of the 9/11 terrorists. And he had
KSM.
Elizondo says publicly, he had a portfolio with Guantanamo Bay. And, it doesn't, he wasn't like in the interrogation room going like, where's the bomb? I don't think it was that, but I think tangentially through this National Program Special Management Group, basically this is an office that like deals with SAPs, special access programs and whatnot. I'm going to chat you.
Okay.
Can you Google that in quotes?
Yep. Got it.
Okay. Go to the Google results and scroll down to lawfareblog.com, session 217. You see it?
No, I'm pulling it up right now. Give me a second. I got to share the screen and also pull this up. So just give me 1 second.
Okay, so here's a 2016 law blog. People go in and they're writing notes about the law, the court case occurring. And one of the results for National Program Special Management staff appeared here. And it's this is regarding Mohammed Sheikh. What is his name? One of the 9/11.
Malik Sheikh Mohammed. Yeah.
Yep. So it's about him. And there was an issue with the interpreter for this 9/11 mastermind. And the issue with the interpreter was, so going down here. So the issue, if you Google for national programs or click find, you'll find that there was with his clearance, there was some issue with the terrorists' interpreters' clearance, right? It says right here, Judge polled at the point of contact for the clearance issue in the program manager for the National Program Special Management staff in the office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. So basically the judge is going like, okay, so this person wants this interpreter, but we can't, approve this interpreter because they're going through a clearance issue. And it says right here, the point of contact for this clearance issue is the director of the National Program Special Management staff. Who is that?
But sounds like it'd be
Elizondo.
Okay. So it would appear that from this document where, from the Gimbal Go Fast, he was the director, he was the head. That was 2016. This law firm blog is dated 2016. There was some kind of issue with the clearance for this interpreter. And it says right here, program manager for the National Program Special Management staff in the office, the clearance issue was with them. Do you guys want to know how this judge referred? They don't name him. They just say program manager. Do you guys want to know how the judge referred to this unnamed program manager?
Yes, please.
Are you in the article?
I am in the article. Yeah.
Control F.
I'm not.
Control F.
Okay.
The word faceless.
Why is it not working? It's not working. Sorry, Steven. It's not coming up.
Okay. So you're at, so scroll up. I'll just read it.
I got you.
I put the link in the description. Okay, you found it. Thank you, rather.
Judge Pohl expresses frustration with the diffusion of responsibility surrounding clearances and asks Trevitt to track down the name of this faceless bureaucrat in Washington responsible for the clearance. So anyway, I thought that was something I discovered recently that I thought was pretty cool because, you don't hear much about the National Program Special Management staff. So that was one of the results that came up.
That's interesting. And that's relevant because a lot of people believe that the faceless bureaucrat account used to belong to Lou.
You know how he got his nickname.
Yeah.
Gun Canyon. it's uncanny how the judge refers to the program manager for the National Program Special Management Staff in 2016 as a faceless bureaucrat. I thought that was a...
Can I just add like a little nugget? Back when I was initially looking into Elizondo, and I did get some-ish confirmation from Jeremy Corbell, but you can't find any web articles on this anymore. I just have my old screenshot. But in 2008, and we know that Elizondo worked for the ODS, and I acronyms are the worst for me.
USPS.
He was a foreign disclosure officer, I believe, which is you're approving a release of military information for foreign government representatives. Is like the official title for that today. I don't know what he was doing in 2008, but like that's a really important job. That's a really big deal that he could have been doing something like that like a really long time ago. I mean, I'm not implying anything with that. I'm just throwing it out there because we're always wondering who Lou is.
Sure, Jane. Yeah, there is interesting stuff. It's not to dismiss. There is interesting stuff, and I think it's important. Look, I think humanity-changing stories deserve critical inquiry. And I think the face of those stories deserve critical inquiry. And I think if you find that there are issues and red flags and maybe mischievous, if not, intentionally disingenuous stuff, that needs to be called out quick before the train gets too far down the tracks, because here we are 4.5 years later. Like, I don't know. Like, I think it's important. That's my whole point.
So I know we don't have a lot of time with you, but I promised a couple of people who I guess who hate you, and I want to answer these questions just because I want to dispel these rumors, because I think these rumors are just haters. I think they're BS. So I want to talk to them about it real quick with you. So there was this post that you put out a few years ago about if you were being hit by a woman voraciously that you would punch her back. Have you ever been arrested for beating a woman, or do you have a felon for any of these crazy kinds of crimes?
I'm sorry. Wait. So what's the question again? Like, I don't have context for what you're asking me.
So people have been posting. Yes, yeah, that's what people have been asking. They want to know if you're a felon or if you beat women.
Am I a felon and do I beat women?
Yeah.
I'm not going to. There is absolutely no way, Lou, I'm going to dignify that question.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, look, I just, again,
before you continue.
Yeah.
What the fuck kind of question was that, Lou?
No,
why did you ask that question?
Because these are questions that we're getting when I announced that you're coming on the show. A whole bunch of people come up to the the Steven Greenstreet fire, and they want to throw gasoline on this fire. And so I'm asking this question because I want to dispel these rumors, because I think you do good work, and I think people are pulling at strings and putting these rumors on the table, trying to make you look like a jerk when I don't think you've ever been arrested. I don't think you beat women. I think people are taking things out of context and they're trying to label you these things. And I want to destroy these labels.
Who are you talking about?
People who responded to the interview that we're doing on Twitter. I'm talking about Twitter. I'm talking about trolls. That's who I'm talking about.
So you're dignifying the questions from anonymous trolls about beating women, and you're asking your guests about that?
Yeah, to hopefully dispel the rumor. That's the whole point. I mean, look, because we get shit from both sides, right? Like we ask tough questions to Lou Elizondo, and we're pariahs. We ask questions. These are questions that people are bringing up, and so I just want to. I'm not asking the question as a gotcha or trying to get you in a certain position. And I'm not trying to dignify these trolls with asking the question. I am just genuinely, I'm trying to dispel these rumors so that we can put this crap behind us.
I don't care about the rumors. But if I was you, and I was interviewing someone, and someone anonymous tweeted me, emailed me, and said, ask the person you're about to interview if they beat women, I would not do that. What I would do is say, okay, well, let me look into this myself. And before I asked that question and dignified it, I'd want to look into it myself and see what's there and be armed with more information before I brought that up in public during a live stream.
No, I think that's fair, and I'm sorry. I apologize. It's not. I don't even want to look into it because I've interacted with you more than one time. You've been on the show. You've been really good to us. This is not a gotcha. I don't believe these rumors. I'm not trying to add to these rumors. I'm trying to dispel them. That's all. Like honestly,
cool.
like
yeah. I just thought I'd fuck with you for a sec. So here, answer me this question.
Yeah.
Was one of the reasons you're asking me an email you got from Lou Elizondo?
No, absolutely not. He had nothing to do with me asking this question. Swear to God.
So Lou Elizondo did not email you referring to me as a felon?
No. Not an email, no.
Not an email?
Yeah.
So what was it?
Well, that's the question. I could talk to you about that off air because I don't want to betray confidences. That was a private message. So I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that off the air. But in the days after I've had that discussion, there are, and I don't know, we'll talk about it off air.
Can I just
we'll talk about
something
it
out there? I really don't want to know about the personal business of a lot of the personalities out there. I don't want people to know about my personal business. I don't, and so I think there's a lot of this obsession with trying to find information on people to get them canceled and to create debate. And I just want to say for the record, I'm truly do not come to me for information on who is good and who is bad in UFO Twitter, who all the mistakes and good things that people have done or not done in their life, because unfortunately, the more years that you spend on this planet, the more shit that you bring into it and that you also clean up. And I just want to say, just in general, I'm personally just not interested in the personal lives. I mean, maybe offhand, if we're having a beer and we're having a dinner and we're friends, I care about that stuff, and what people are going through. But I say that. And I'm just kind of done with that. I'm just I want to know about the UFO.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole cancel. I mean, it's really to just kill this whole cancel culture idea and mob. But rather, what are you saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, Steven, you got to know that whenever you post something or someone posts about you, you get a whole cadre of trolls posting a bunch of nasty rumors about you. And I guess the question to you is, what do you make of that? And on that, what makes you think that Lou Elizondo might be kind of part of that or adding to those rumors?
Okay, so the last part first, the direct question is, I heard a rumor and then reached out to sources to confirm, and apparently, and I believe Lou just confirmed it himself, Lou Elizondo sent out an email with, I'm not going to reveal the names of the other people on the list, but my name was on the email, and he essentially was look out for these 5 felons. And my name was on the list, and he's reaching out. I think it was before, obviously, I did this show. And so I confirmed, there's tons of rumors on Twitter that I mostly don't care about, but this one in particular, I was well, I should probably confirm this. And I was able to confirm it. Now, as for the other stuff, I mostly don't care. I mean, I don't know if you remember Squidding, but a long time ago, Elizondo posted this question where, what if someone called your mother a whore? It was a long time ago. I don't know if you remember, rather, but and I liked your answer. Your answer was, I wouldn't reply at all. I would just ignore it. That's what that was your initial response to that. And my initial response is a copy paste of yours. I'm not no. Look, none of that is true, the way people are posting it. I've seen some of the stuff, and it's jaw dropping. It's absolutely jaw dropping, some of it, and it's religious in nature, in my opinion, because I experienced that when I left a religion. It's a threat to people, because if I'm saying your beliefs are wrong, it suddenly is a threat to everything, right, especially obsessives, everything you represent, and they lash out. They lash out sometimes violently, and so I'm familiar with that kind of like that attitude. And dude, some of the stuff is just like, okay, all right, fine, let's just bring it up. So like, there's the one that's spreading around. There's the picture of where I say, ladies and gentlemen, the national portrait of Michelle Obama, and it's the potato Jesus meme.
Yeah, and that's the one I have, and that's these are the things. Like, I'm glad you're addressing this, so then now we could correct this kind of crap.
Because like, what's so funny is like at the time that day, it was trending on Twitter as like an odd looking painting and like just something a little off about it. And if you Google right now, bad painting meme, what's a good meme for a bad painting? The first thing that comes up is Potato Jesus, which was like this really terribly done painting in Spain. And so I picked that, and I was like, ladies and gentlemen, the national portrait of Michelle Obama. And somehow I have become a member of the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah. Right. No, and that's look, that's exactly the answer I was looking for. And I will be one again, and I'll address this publicly. That was an email I didn't get. I got it in a kind of a different form, and we could talk about that off air. But that question was brought up to me, and I'll put his name out there because he's a fan of the show. He's in our Discord. By the way, we'll be continuing this discussion in the Discord with or without Steven. We'll be talking about this. So join us there. But Matthew Riot had given me that question because when we were looking at it, we're like, let's just ask the question so that way we could kill the rumor and just stop. So that way when people come up with this stuff, every time you say something, it's like, look, we talked about this. Here's where we talked about it. That's BS, and we're moving on. Like, I think that's valuable. And I apologize. Maybe the way I framed it, no, definitely the way I framed the question was inappropriate. And I didn't mean to come out that way. I'm not a journalist. I'm kind of bumbly with these things sometimes. So I apologize. But I just couldn't. I didn't want the internet to be like, oh, you can ask Lou Elizondo hard questions, but you can't ask Steven Greenstreet because you're scared. It's just like, I'm not scared.
They're going to say that anyway, Lou.
I'm not scared of the question because I know I based off of the interactions I've had with the human, I don't believe these accusations.
Yeah. Well, the only issue I had was the way you asked it. So like,
and I apologize for that. That's on me.
No. Moving forward, the way I would have asked it is this way. For example, so I saw some disquieting rumors about you. I dug into it myself, and I have these two things in front of me that I would like clarification on. So like, that's kind of cool because you've looked into it. You have decided for yourself that it is a big issue. You're going to bring it up. But to like translate and just copy paste random, anonymous, insignificant limp dick people on Twitter and throw it my way, like, I'm not going to react well to that. Like,
no, and you make a good point. But the thing is when we asked Lou Elizondo about his sock puppet accounts, we were asking him based off of rumors that we heard on Twitter, and it resulted in an answer that was, what's that?
Yeah, you looked into it, right? I mean, I only assume you probably did your own research into that. Yeah,
we looked into it. And also, well, when it came to you in that rumor, I also asked around and looked into it. It's not like but I was basing that belief, again, based off of the interactions.
Oh, here. So the other one, and I commented on your Twitter today about QAnon.
I did.
Apparently, I'm a
Q. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a QAnoner. I'm a Q guy. Look, my one and only experience with Q-tards is in 2020, June of 2020, and I'll send you the links. I made for the New York Post, I made this anti-QAnon video, and Jordan Sather, who used to be one of the leaders of QAnon, and his army came after me on Twitter for like basically making fun of them and like all their crazy conspiracy theories. And it eventually ended with Jordan getting banned off Twitter because he like lost his mind that I made this like snarky anti-Q video. But I'm suddenly a Q guy, apparently. I'm suddenly like
Right.
a QAnon guy.
No, and yeah, I again, man, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your tactfulness with that question. I appreciate it. And again, I apologize if that caught you off guard. It certainly was not my intention. But I think it was helpful, honestly.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good, man. And it's all good. And look, if people aren't coming after you and throwing punches and throwing mud and throwing dirt, like I know I'm doing something right.
Yes.
Because of it, like it's never going to be an easy road. It's never going to be an easy road to ask difficult questions and challenge the narrative, a popular narrative, popular faith-based narrative is never going to be easy. But it is. I'm disappointed in it. I'm disappointed in the stuff, but I'm not surprised by it. And at the end of the day, I mostly don't care. Like it would break my heart if you felt that way about me. But like random people who are faceless on Twitter, who are just, I'm fine, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, again, thank you so much for your patience. Thank you for your work. And I'm going to end this on a positive note and play the trailer for the new season of The Basement Office. So let's do that right now. And then we're going to get out of here, you guys. Thank you all so damn much. I appreciate it. Love you. And yeah, thanks for hanging out. Here we go. Wait, where did I put it?
By the way, is it a tear? Everybody's saying a tear in the sky. I know we're watching Basement Space.
Yeah,
it's a tear in the. Is it tear in the sky?
I think it's tear.
Talking about rain.
It's TEAR, isn't it?
It's tear.
All right, let's play this.
You guys are making Mandela effect shit. Excuse me.
Are you watching closely?
The magician shows you something ordinary. A balloon, a drone, or a plane.
We're not talking about a balloon. We're not talking about a quadcopter or a drone. And we're not talking about an aircraft.
The magician takes the ordinary something and makes it into something extraordinary.
Imagine a technology that can do 600 to 700 G-forces, that can fly at 13,000 miles an hour, and that can fly through air and water and possibly space.
Demonstrated speeds in excess of 5,000 miles an hour. It was able to hover 50 feet above the ocean.
Hypersonic speeds, ability to operate underwater, in some cases cloaking, turning invisible.
I think we've come to the point now where we begin to realize it's really all a manifestation of potentially a single technology.
Wow.
Now you're looking for the secret. But you won't find it. Because, of course, you're not really looking. You don't really want to work it out. You want to be fooled.
Love it.
Can't wait. May 11th. We got a date.
Looks good. May 11th, new season of The Basement Office. You guys, thank you all so damn much for being here. Coming aboard, getting weird with us here on another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Steven Greenstreet. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. We've got some reviews coming up next week, so stay tuned. We didn't get to your rant, unfortunately, but we'll get to it next week. Love you all. Thank you all so much for being here. We'll catch you next time. Be good. Peace. I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.